Hello and welcome to Rough Cut, your community-driven podcast on navigating the art and practice of video journalism and nonfiction filmmaking from the Video Consortium. I'm Brandon Graves, this episode's guest host, and I'm joined by Kamaria Roberts. My role at the Video Consortium, I'm the director of the Newsroom Collective, and Kamaria is a program strategist for the Newsroom Collective. We've tag team on starting this amazing program, and the goal of it is to create a community and a network for local newsrooms to develop their video strategies and content, to expand their audiences, and also their journalistic impact and revenue. In this session, we dive deep into a lot of different challenges that we both faced, how we started as video journalists, and as we navigated the spaces for figuring out what our careers look like and our pathways to growing as video journalists, managers, and so forth. We cover a lot of different topics and talk about the future of video for organizations and local newsrooms. Let's get into it. What's up? How's it going?
I'm good. I'm excited for this podcast. How are you today?
Pretty good. Busy week. I think we both have unique winding backgrounds. So we could start with Newsroom Collective, I guess our roles, and then just really jump to start of your journey, my journey, how it was early on as a video person. So
Yeah, I love working with VC and really helping to launch the Video Incubator. For me, this is just perfectly aligned with everything I've done in my career leading up to now. So this is just such a great opportunity. And I think that being someone who was in the newsroom, I know the struggles of local journalists when it comes to implementing video. So when you guys, tapped me for this project, I just felt completely compelled to get on board because, I know the importance of journalism, especially local journalism. And I know, the essential information they provide for their communities and, knowing that they could do their work so much better with video. So to be able to pour into those rooms and give them support is just really important to me.
I was very thankful that you came in to help with strategy. And that was the most challenging part for me of what does this look like from start to finish, and how do we get newsrooms really to the finish line to implement video? So it's not just a one-off, and it becomes actually very successful.
Yeah, I'm really excited about the point at which I got involved with you and Sky in this project because you all were still so flexible and still so open. And I think that, you all having different backgrounds too, you're less rigid, being in a newsroom, you think and you do things one day, but having experience like you have from broadcast and like Sky has from being a documentarian, bringing all those really good things that we know about video together helps us break the mold of like what's been done or what newsrooms have already tried. And I think that the three of us, we came together, it was such an opportune time because I was able to like make space for this project, and you guys were at a space where you were able to still like take in a lot of my feedback and be really receptive to it because you weren't super rigid about what this was yet.
Tried not to be. I'm coming from, like you said, broadcast world, and I don't know how it was for you, but I was probably really ignorant of the other types of news and even just language. Like when I first started off, I'd say news station instead of newsroom. Me and Sky always joke about that. But I didn't know how that was for you, since you have a little bit of a mixed background, but started in broadcast and stuff like that. How was your experience?
Yeah, I would say I was super spoiled with my first journalism role right out of college at PBS NewsHour because as an online video producer, obviously that's a live broadcast syndication. They go live every day at 6. They prioritize video. Video is, second nature to them, especially doing it online. So, I was super encouraged by management to pitch projects and to travel and to do interviews and to, explore different video packages and put them online because they have such a large audience. Not anything, but a lot of the things that I pitched and I wrote, so someone would bite. There was an audience for it. So whether it was a top about, trans legislation in New Jersey or Black art in DC, there was an opportunity for me to do video there. And I just thought that was the most amazing thing because they just had such a large platform. And so then directly from that, I jump into the world of local newspapers, not just local news, local newspapers. So like newspapers are not ahead when it comes to being, digitally forward. A lot of them are still in the phase of digital transformation, meaning they're getting their systems online and not even thinking about video yet. They're still getting the print news online and seeing what that looks like as far as, building revenue and sustainability, et cetera. So that was also a very interesting pivot for me because I had always been told video is the most important thing. And so when I got there and I meet these people who are doing this extremely important work but they're not thinking about video, it's that kind of like, am I the a-hole moment where you're like, hey, I need you to do one more thing, video. But it got to a point where I was able to create workflows and work with these journalists really well and show them how they can extend their reporting using video, and it doesn't have to be a heavy lift. And that was really rewarding for me, as a young manager and a new kind of in my career, to be able to see that type of impact, which I think is what really got me to want to keep doing it.
Yeah, yeah. What was it like for you early on? I mean, in your journey, you talked about even when you said manager, how big was like the team that you were a part of? And also, I guess the early start from when you first started all the way to get into that manager position.
When I moved to local journalism, that first team was pretty small. My first manager role, I was managing three video producers, and then I had some dotted lines with aggregate producers outside of my newsroom, but still in California. And that for me was really interesting because I inherited that team of video producers, and they had various experiences in journalism and in video. So they all had really different interests and really different skill sets. And then the pandemic happened. So I'm a brand new manager. I just moved to California for this role. I don't know people in California. I only know like, my boss and coworkers, the folks who hired me. And I get this team. I'm younger than one of the people on the team. The other two are like my peers, the same age as me. And we have this new COVID thing, and now we can't even go out and shoot video. So it was one of those like think fast moments for me where I really had to figure out what can we do, and we became a fully aggregate team, meaning we just like collected video footage off of the internet and did video packages. And then we later on transitioned to being a live team where we would send people. We trained all of our reporters to go live on iPhones, and we used this platform called StreamYard, and we would just have the reporters going live every day while they were doing their reporting, and we would be broadcasting that to Facebook, YouTube, and sometimes on our own site, depending the story. But we had to think fast, and I think we did a really great job of transitioning the whole newsroom's mindset around video. It wasn't necessarily on purpose, but COVID happened, the George Floyd protests happened, and then California had a very, very bad wildfire season, all in the span of like 4 months. And that's where we just like we got our superpowers, so to say.
Yeah. When you talk about aggregating footage, what was that like? I mean, were you all going out regularly trying to figure out how to create content? Or like, what was the percentage of doing that versus aggregating and figuring out that what it looked like for your shows and the productions? What was that like?
Aggregation is when you're a fully aggregate video producer. It's really interesting because you don't have that control of shooting the shot. You don't have that control of being the one who necessarily conducts the interview. You're finding you have reporting that you're trying to tell, and you're finding all these different pieces from the internet to make sure that the story you're trying to tell is told correctly. So there is a different type of pre-production planning that comes with producing these type of videos, where you have to be so clear on the reporting. And I think that was something, a muscle that I hadn't worked really hard, because I was able to worry about beautiful visuals and perfect lighting and all of these things. But when you're an aggregate video producer, you're not in control of that. You just have to make sure the story comes across clear. So that was a really strong lesson for me to learn in that role. But it was something we were doing pretty regularly. I mean, we would do it for breaking news stories and go and find, like, if a car accident happened or an oil spill, we would reach out to these whoever owns the video, see if we can get the rights. Obviously there comes paying for these videos. There we had a budget for that. But it was a great experience because online everything moves so fast, and realistically in these local newsrooms they're not going to be able to shoot everything as it happens. So aggregate video production is a really good option for when you do want to use video to report something that's happening and you can't get someone there, or if it's across the world, what have you.
And how did you start getting into video? What was your story of what sparked that? And even just a little bit of how you were shooting early on. What was that like?
When I first got started in video, it was very early on in my life. I can't even say career because I had no career. I was in high school, and I transferred schools, and one of the classes that you could choose on the side was video production, and that class had an opening because someone else had just left the class. I started like falling in love with doing interviews. It was just a great time, and I acclimated so well to that school and so well to my class so fast because of video, because of my immediate connection with the camera and being able to take it out into the hallways and get to know students and get to interview teachers and stuff. Like it really helped me gain confidence just to have that camera in between me and someone to have a conversation. I think I became more aware of myself and like what I wanted to know about people. And it was just like, it just became a very personal tool for me to be able to be the camera girl. So fast forward to later in life, I get to Howard University and I see radio, TV, and film as a major, immediately guess. And, my mom and dad were as supportive as they could be, but they're like, what does that job look like? Are you going to be a radio personality? Or are you going to be on the news? Like people always say, so you want to be a news broadcaster? And I'm like, no, I like holding the camera. So that's how it all started. But yeah, once I got out of college and I started working in newsrooms, it transformed from just loving video to also loving video and journalism, and that has all led me here. And it's just been a really wonderful ride. And I'm holding on to video as tightly as I can because every role I get, I feel like I'm moving further and further away from a camera. But that's why for my personal life, I have to do vlogging or something or do photo shoots because I love it.
So I didn't know if you experienced that conflict of, I mean, even me getting back, I was thankful to get this role. But at one point, I was really unsure what was next. You got all these communication jobs, a lot of different opportunities, but it's not this clear path of where I need to go with my video storytelling skills. So I was interested what that was like for you, because I know you're able to build quite a career, but that those in between times of trying to figure out what's next.
Yeah, I mean, those times come and go, and I'm currently in one of those kind of what's next periods. But when I look back at like the career I've kind of taken at my career, I've kind of taken a lot of chances, and I think that what I've done right is leaning into curiosity and saying yes to things that I don't 100% know that I can do. When I left DC to move to Sacramento to work at the Sacramento Bee with that McClatchy role, I had never been a manager. I didn't know a single soul in Sacramento. And I literally I just knew that for me to have like any upward progression in my career, that I had to do something new. And I think that, with my career, I have been really good at choosing things that I'm curious about and that align with my passions. Even right now, this is my first year. I'm in month 12 of my very first year of working full time as an entrepreneur and freelancer. And so, this was not a comfortable decision to make. But when I realized that for me to keep enjoying what I do every day when I woke up, I needed to be the boss of my schedule for a year. I just needed to, get out there and see what I could do, put all of my skills to test and see what felt best for me. And I was, fortunate enough to have gotten to a place in my career where I can do that. I've built a name and work and a resume for myself. So I said, why not? But, some days I do wake up and say, oh my God, this is how much it costs to, pay for my benefits out of pocket. Like maybe I should just go back to the corporate world. But that's not enough to drive me there right now. I'm still really passionate about the work that I'm doing with you and Sky and all the other projects I have going on. So I'm making it work, but I've definitely been more secure in other roles that I've had. But there is no real easy answer to that. But I would say just when it comes to your career, take chances. Like my parents both, they stayed more, not my, both my parents, my dad though, he stayed at one job for like my whole life. And, I don't think he regrets it, but I also don't think that I could do it.
It's interesting that a lot of the newsrooms just see the writing on the wall of where things are going, how people are consuming news content. I mean, even this past election, you got candidates on podcasts, and that just like they're not watching CNN all the time or Fox or whatever people watch. Is like they're watching podcasts and other forms of media. So I thought about, I mean, as we've been trying to support newsrooms, the Newsroom Collective is for newsrooms across the US to help them with video strategies, solutions, stuff that we're talking about. But what is your perspective on all of this? I mean, there's a lot of talk now. There was before Pivot to Video, but there's definitely talk going around now about video and how essential it is for a lot of newsrooms, media companies. You mentioned all the the businesses that are hiring video jobs now. It's like, where were y'all at 10 years ago when I left news and was looking for these opportunities? But what's
Right.
your perspective, and even with Newsroom Collective, your thoughts on the future of video for news and also media?
Yeah, I would say my thought is that every organization needs to have a video workflow in place. How often or how much of a lift these video workflows should be varies on the organization and the audience and the need. But I would say where I think that we all need to be careful and watch out for is the reliance on platforms. Right now we're having a national discussion whether TikTok is here to stay or not. And right now, a lot of organizations have based their video strategies around TikToks. And so when we rely on platforms that we don't own to get the majority of our content to the majority of our audiences, then there's a huge risk we take with algorithms changing, platforms shutting down, content being deleted. There's a huge risk there. So one thing that I like to remind journalists all the time, especially in these local newsrooms that are trying to get people to subscribe, is video is a tool that can be so many things. And while you do want to share your reporting on social media, you also want to be thinking about ways to drive that audience back to your site. And newsroom homepages are dead right now, but I think that there's a huge opportunity to create really strong core audiences that will actively visit a newspaper homepage if it can act as a platform that is regularly updated with strong visuals and video. And I mean, right now, people are doing a great job of producing podcasts and, going live and, reusing video. But a lot of that lives on these third party platforms that the newsroom doesn't own and that you have to rely on advertising or views to get monetization from. I mean, the more people you can drive to your site, the more subscribers you will grow. And that is the most sustainable model, I think, for local newsrooms.
I would love people to understand that. Like, the video is also an amazing tool for monetization, but it's definitely a powerful medium for anybody to utilize. And I think that adopting of it holistically, of you can record Facebook Live, you can do short form storytelling, you can do short form teasers on social media and all that stuff, marketing. So yeah, that's something that I know I hope that comes across in the Newsroom Collective, but I'm sure a lot of people, as they're struggling with, do I adopt this medium? I think that's what I hope people are taken away of the powerful human elements that come through video.
Yeah, I mean, and that to me is just at the core of why it is so important because it really connects us across time and place. I mean, like you think about hearing these stories from other countries or from other points in history and time, and reading about them in school or in a history book or something is one thing, but then if you're able to see a video from something, a war in the Middle East, or if you're able to see what Nazi Germany looked like in a video to give you real historical context. It opens your mind in such a different way when you're not able to be somewhere and to have a video from it. It really is one of the most powerful things. And I think, I always give people like the example of like, even in childhood, some of our earliest emotions are connected to video. Think about watching The Lion King or, seeing a kid watch, Moana or Tiana, whoever their favorite princess is for the first time, like, those connections to images that we see, they shape how we think of ourselves and the world around us. And it's so powerful. It's so powerful. So I love talking to people who get that because yes, it is in our industry about money, but at the root of it, it's about like, making that human connection.
Yeah, I agree so much. I think so many other people are making that connection. All the video creators, I mean, cross social, they're making connections, and whether we like every way how they do it, but it's very much human. It's engaging with people.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing it with the rise of influencers. I mean, I think that first Trump presidency in 2016, it changed a little bit of the online narrative with journalism because, the whole fake news, misinformation, disinformation, it put a really bad taste in people's mouth for journalists and for journalism, especially online, because, there was this huge thing with is Facebook doing, enough to protect people from misinformation, et cetera, et cetera. But I think that's when the shift to the trust that people have with influencers started to shift and really grow, because all of a sudden you have this person who takes you on an adventure with them throughout the day, where you're able to see their mom, their dad, their kitchen, them in their bathroom, them in their car, them at their job. And you start to grow this parasocial bond where you feel like, I trust this person. And the information they give you is now become more trustworthy than that of a journalist at an esteemed organization, because, of the mindset and the culture shift that we've had. So I think that it's really important for journalists to come on these platforms and to use video to build that connection with the audience, a human connection, not just the information, but the person who's presenting the information too, because influencing has changed that. People want to know who said it and do I trust them?
I remember that impacting, I think, I don't know everything that impacts the election. There's so much that goes into that. But I remember a lot of people were talking about, it was an interview Kamala did, and whatever people's stances are, people were taken back by the editing that happened. But I'm like, y'all know whatever is like shot is going to be edited to whatever degree. And now you're hyper focused on it, because we have, my wife always jokes, 3-hour podcast that I'm watching and that's uninterrupted. And that's a 3-hour conversation. So, but that is not the norm. We can't, as news stations, newsrooms,
Right.
always give you the full clip, but it's causing us to put pressure on how we do things, with giving people at least spaces where things are not edited or uninterrupted, to give the authenticity that other spaces are providing. And I think people were so shocked by that, but it's kind of the norm now of not having as much editing and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it works, but that's the thing. I think we all just have to stay flexible, because that's the thing about video. It's like anything else now. It's super trendy and it changes. And that works right now because I think that's what the algorithms push. And we've, become accustomed to that. But I'm waiting to see what's the next big thing in journalism. And that's one of those things. It's kind of hard to predict. I mean, we'll see.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think we covered a lot, and sure we're at time. I know we could always talk forever. This is great, especially hearing more of your story, your background, and winding experiences, some commonalities between our stories and stuff. So
yeah, for sure.
Sweet. Well, guess we'll be seeing each other next week. Newsroom
Collective. For our next session. I'm looking forward to it.
This episode of Rough Cut was hosted by me, Brandon Graves, and produced by Audrey Horwitz, and executive produced by Sky Dylan Robbins and Kat Vecchio. Our original music is by Zach Ray.
Rough Cut is part of the Video Consortium, which is a global creative community and organization that supports the world's nonfiction filmmakers and video journalists to tell bold stories that catalyze change. We would love for you to join our nonfiction film family, and you can learn more at videoconsortium.org.
And we love hearing from listeners. So if you would like to send us a note, you can find us on Instagram at Rough Cut Podcast, or you can send us an email at podcast@videoconsortium.org. And don't forget to rate us and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and subscribe. Thank you, and see you soon.